balance it up. And usually you see these.
Let's see, is this, well, this is working. Good morning, and thank you all for making it out. I know it's a little chilly out there. I'm John Kostas, and back in 2015, I was the first study participant in a clinical trial treating alcohol use disorder for with psychedelic-assisted therapy, specifically psilocybin. And before we get started, I just wanted to thank the two congressmen who are leading this initiative, Congressman Lou Correa and General Jack Bergman. Thank you very much. You know, this takes tremendous courage. This is not a popular research and scientific field to get behind, especially if you're on the ballot every 2 years. So I want people to know how much courage that takes. I'd also like to thank Alexander and Elizabeth Bari from the Congressman's offices for all their hard work putting this together. And thank Sergeant John Lebecki and former Congresswoman Mimi Walters for their advocacy in this field. So when I was 16, I went to my first AA meeting. I tried every possible treatment to stop drinking and nothing worked. And doctors said I'd be dead by 30 if I didn't give up alcohol. And I never experimented with psychedelics out of pure fear. Did not want to have a quote-unquote bad trip and lose my mind. But at this point in my life, I was desperate. So I wanted to try anything that was left, anything available. I was treatment resistant entering the trial, and I want to make clear that I was a best case scenario as a result of this research, and not everyone, unfortunately, has that same result as I did, but this treatment surpassed my greatest expectations. Over the course of the year-long trial, which was mainly psychotherapy sessions, I had 3 psilocybin sessions, and I stopped drinking after my very first session. Psychedelic-assisted therapy cured my alcoholism, and by totally eliminating any cravings that I had. And out of desperation, I made a deal with God before taking that first psilocybin capsule, saying if this thing works for me, I'm going to do everything I can to help make this available for others that are suffering. So fast forward a few years later, and we launched a nonprofit advocacy group called the Apollo PACT, which helps find clinical trials for study participants. And right now, the demand is way too high. And unfortunately, there are not enough clinical trials for these desperate people to be a part of. And that's why what these two congressmen are doing right now and what this caucus plans to do will tremendously help this research, spur innovation, create more clinical trials, and ultimately save more lives. And I am forever grateful for their leadership on this. So with psychedelics being sensationalized by the media and, you know, everything else that's out there right now, let's not jump ahead of the data, and let's encourage more research. This has a lot of promise, but there's also a lot of hype. So let's see this research continue to be conducted in safe and a responsible way. And psychedelic-assisted therapy has the potential to help folks suffering from depression, substance abuse, anxiety, PTSD, eating disorders, and much more. And with so many people suffering from mental health disorders, and everyone in this room probably knows someone who is struggling, there are very limited options that are currently available. The time to fund more psychedelic research is now. And if this therapy can save a treatment-resistant guy like me, how many more people can it save? Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce former Navy SEAL, Marcus Capone.
Thank you, John. I'm going to echo some of the same information that John shared, and hopefully I'll be up here no more than 3 or 4 minutes. As John mentioned, my name is Marcus Capone. I am the co-founder and chairman of Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions, a 501c3 organization dedicated to ending veteran suicide through the safe clinical use of psychedelic therapies. I'm also the founder and CEO of a company called Tara Mind. It's a platform to provide access to and affordability for all people who are in need of these therapies. I served 13 years in special operations as a U.S. Navy SEAL with multiple combat deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. Proud to have served this nation, and there's nothing I would do to change my time in service. What does need to change, however, and we're doing it now, is access to effective life-saving treatments for addressing the invisible wounds that so many of our nation's veterans are facing today. Having tried many available options offered to me, including multiple antidepressants, brain treatment centers, and a host of other evidence-based modalities, I can say unequivocally that psychedelic-assisted therapy saved and changed my life forever. Over the past 5 years, I've seen it save the lives of countless friends, teammates, colleagues, and others. I've seen it work for strangers and close confidants alike. I've seen it work for veterans with recent suicide attempts who are now living productive and thriving lives. Despite promising research in the 50s and 60s, these substances were banned and research was halted with the introduction of the Controlled Substances Act in 1970. Only now is the promise of psychedelic therapy reemerging. Psychedelic therapy could be the next major breakthrough in mental health care, and we'll see about that with the research. Administered in a clinical setting and under proper medical supervision, these therapies will save not only veteran lives, but could save and impact American lives across our entire nation. As a nation, we've become numb to the number of roughly 20 veteran suicides per day that is documented. This is unacceptable. No one needs or deserves these interventions more than our nation's veterans. It's reprehensible that a generation of American soldiers that have carried the weight of 20 years of sustained combat, lost countless friends in battle, and survived the wars themselves must return home to a new war they must fight alone, one which often ends in taking their own lives. For perspective, we lost just over 7,000 soldiers fighting the global war on terrorism since 9/11, 2001. We've now lost over 30,000 to suicide during the same period of time. Research shows these therapies may be far more effective than any conventional treatment currently available, but we need more research around psychedelic therapies, especially within the veteran population, as we are frequently excluded from current trials. I consider myself to be living proof that psychedelic therapies are undeniably efficacious when delivered in the proper therapeutic setting. In fact, I was so compelled by dramatic life-saving impact that my wife and I founded Vets Together, as I mentioned, Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions, to assist other veterans who may be in need of the same intervention. What began with helping my friends and former teammates is now reaching around the globe. Veterans from across the United States and now the rest of the world are reaching out to us and becoming interested in these therapies at a rapidly increasing rate. To date, our organization has sent nearly 700 veterans who were willing to give their lives for this country into other countries for access to meaningful care. The demand on our organization is now impossible to meet, which is why we desperately need new solutions within the border of the United States. Today, I'm living a happy and productive life. I'm reconnected with my family and excited about the future. I take 0 prescription medications. I was on them for 7 years straight before my psychedelic treatment in 2017. I found purpose again in our work at Vets, and we've made incredible strides improving veteran well-being. I attribute this entire turnaround to these medicines and my treatment outside the borders of the U.S. In a country where it was legal, on Veterans Day, ironically, as I mentioned, in 2017. So on behalf of all veterans who may be running out of hope and running out of time, I would like to thank Representatives Bergman and Correa for launching this critically important Congressional caucus. We hope their efforts will help educate other members of Congress about the important research being done and the acute need to fund more research and expand access to these life-saving therapies. We look forward to working with them to expand the effort to bring these effective treatment options to those in need. Together we can end veteran suicide. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Rachel Yehuda, Director for the Center for Psychedelic Psychotherapy and Trauma Research at the Icahn School of Medicine out Mount Sinai.
Good morning, everyone, and
Good morning.
thank you for inviting me. I'd like to start by telling you a little bit about why we established the Center for Studying Psychedelic Psychotherapy at Mount Sinai. I've been a researcher at Mount Sinai for more than 30 years, and I've also been at the Mount Sinai affiliate, which is the Bronx VA, and the whole time just conducting research in this area. And what you heard before, and I'll just repeat it, is that the current standard of care leaves too many people with a substandard response or still needing more therapy. And so, of course, anytime there's a new approach or a new therapy that comes out that promises to help people with PTSD, of course, we're going to be very interested in it. And I think it's important to note that psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy, it's not just about another medication being brought to bear. What is being offered with psychedelic psychotherapy is the opportunity to be in a frame of mind that is conducive to examining some really difficult issues in mental health that will then lead, ultimately, if very successful, to an insight that will change the behavior. So psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy represents a really important blending of a medicine that helps open you up to be insightful and a psychotherapeutic process. So it's very, very exciting. I was also very excited by the kind of testimonies that you just heard this morning. But I also knew in hearing these stories that you can't really change public policy or the standard of care in mental health just through anecdotal stories. And that you have to do research because no one outcome is going to be necessarily representative of the full range of outcomes that are involved in doing psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy. So that's why the research is so important. We need to understand all the things that can happen to all people, and then use our very novel new techniques in neuroscience to be able to understand mechanism of action of these medicines and help us predict who will best respond. We also have to be able to look at the negative outcomes, if there are any, so that we can build contingencies for them. So all of those were the motivators for coming together with a lot of really talented people at Mount Sinai and developing the center. As we embarked on initiating clinical trials, however, we saw that it was a very tall order to get all of the things in line so that we can conduct this research. First of all, there is the stigma that is associated with psychedelics. I mean, that's still out there, especially in conservative mainstream institutions. These compounds are still not federally legal. They're under a Schedule I, and therefore, there are a lot of regulatory hurdles to follow. Not to mention that all of the regulatory steps have to be done sequentially and not in parallel. And there was no available funding through the normal peer-reviewed channels like the National Institute of Mental Health. So all of those things were barriers. I'm happy to announce that we have initiated a study of MDMA-assisted psychotherapy for combat veterans, and it's so far going pretty well, and we're at the cusp of initiating a psilocybin study. The reason I'm here today is because Congress has such an important role in making it a little easier for researchers to vet these treatments. Researchers who do not stand to benefit in any material way except what always gives us the benefit, which is the work accomplished on behalf of the people that need us the most. So in order to be able to really do this work in an ethical, responsible, and equitable manner, we need Congress to intervene to help us make it easier. Thank you very much, and with that, I would like to introduce Congressman Correa, who is the co-chair of the PACT Caucus. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
But for the grace of God, there go I, or my children, or a loved one. Just finished an election in the United States. Big issue in my district, probably the top issue, was homelessness. Along with it, substance abuse and other challenges in our community. We all know them. Drug addiction, alcoholism, mental health. But those issues aren't really part of you. They're abstract statistics until you're touched personally by these issues. Until somebody in your family is suffering and you can't find a solution. Years ago, I was in the California State Senate along with Mimi Walters, and I joined the Mental Health Caucus, a couple of other related caucuses, because my life was touched personally. And I'll be honest with you, I've been touched by this all my life. Grew up in an alcoholic family. And every time we turn around, as we address this issue, these issues, homelessness especially, seems like we're losing the battle. We invest resources, interest, and the problem gets bigger and bigger. Can't figure it out. Psychedelic assisted therapies. Tremendous potential, tremendous promise. That's why I'm here. The key features of these trials, that they are conducted with FDA approval, under medical supervision, and in a safe environment. Our goal, to engage the federal government to increase these clinical trials based on FDA approval and using university research centers across the country. This process will establish psychedelic-assisted therapies as the gold standard for mental health treatment. That's where we're going. Why? Psychedelic-assisted therapies have a successful rate of 80% in treating depression, 67% in treating PTSD, and 80% in treating addiction, 67% in treating PTSD, compared to 20% under current standards for treating depression. Current results, 3% for treating addiction, 10% for treating PTSD. The universities that are now engaged in this research: New York University, Johns Hopkins, Yale, Stanford, Harvard, and University of California, San Francisco. Think about it. Tremendous results. If we can duplicate these results in the real world, forget about the millions of dollars that will be saved. Think about the millions of lives that will be saved, the countless families that will stay together, the benefit our society will have moving forward. And that's why this caucus is so important. To foster federal discussions with leading experts in the field and bringing this research to Washington to be shared with our Congress members and U.S. senators. It's nothing magical, nothing secret. It's about data. It's about results. It's about sharing this information with the rest of leading U.S. policymakers. Thank you for being here. I know each and every one of you has a story to tell. And now, if I can, I'd like to introduce my very good friend, Congressman Lieutenant General Jack Bergman. Jack is the highest ranking officer to ever serve in the United States Congress. Jack.
Well, good morning, and thank all of you for being here. When you hear members of Congress talk, and they talk about their colleagues, my friend, my dear friend. Well, in this case, Congressman Correa and I came in together as freshmen. Now, admittedly, we were a little older than the average freshman.
We still are.
We still are, but we came with life's experience that enabled us, I believe, to both become productive members of Congress quite rapidly. And when I say thank you to my friend, Lou Correa, it is not gratuitous, it is meant from the bottom of my heart. So, you know, as an old retired Marine general, you know, who continues to serve, you know, our nation in Congress, I've seen the destruction post-traumatic stress disorder can cause to my fellow veterans and their families. In fact, as Lou mentioned, each of us has a story that this has touched us personally. In our family, it was our nephew, a Marine, who took his life. So you don't have to go very far to look into all of us, and especially as we, as members of the House of Representatives and the Senate, look into our constituents and our families. This is the time has come. It's probably overdue, but the time has come to move forward down the pathway we're headed. You know, in a recent VA report, the administration concluded that now the number of veterans that die by suicide every day is now 17. Down a little bit from 2022, as we've heard, but not anywhere near good enough. However, the outside academic researchers think that number could be as high as 44 a day, because we lose touch and track of so many men and women who served, who just drop off the map after their service. So we really don't know how accurate the numbers are. You know, coupled with the 519 U.S. service members who died by suicide in 2021, it's become abundantly clear we have a mental health crisis in our country, and we must take an all hands on deck, all solutions considered approach to combat this worsening problem. Our job is to find solutions to these problems, and if psychedelic assisted therapy can help treat or more hopefully fully cure someone of their PTSD, we need to take a closer look at these potentially life-saving therapies. That's why Congressman Correa and I, we joined together in truly a bipartisan way to create the Congressional Psychedelics Advanced Clinical Treatments Caucus. And that's a mouthful. But the bottom line is, you know, we'll have a good acronym, but the mission is to help others. That's the mission in different ways than maybe we've tried before. You know, our fellow veterans have done their duty for our country. It is only right that our nation does its duty by making those therapies available to our veterans here at home. Why are veterans who served, protected, and sacrificed for us leaving our country to get medical treatment outside the U.S.? Why did they have to do that? We need to be better to address the mental health crisis in our veteran community and the population as a whole. We need to fuel innovation. We need to fuel the initiatives, the integrity, we know the intent. The intent is to do better. We need to fuel that, and this caucus is going to do exactly that. Mental health continues to be a relentless challenge for Americans who serve and have served, whether it be at home or abroad, whether it's their family members who suffer from the distance, if you will, the family separation. It affects everybody. The clinical trials involving psychedelic-assisted therapies have produced encouraging results. The key features of those clinical trials are that they are conducted with FDA approval, under medical supervision, and in safe, controlled environments. We aim to engage the federal government to scale such clinical trials based on FDA approval using university research centers across the country. This process will establish psychedelics-assisted therapies as the gold standard, you've heard it before, as the gold standard of mental health treatments. As we observed Veterans Day a few days ago, in fact, last Friday, November 11th, was Veterans Day, and I had the opportunity and the honor to just be quietly in the crowd at the 40th commemoration anniversary of the Vietnam War. And it was a packed house, and I tell you, one of the best speeches that was given there was by Secretary McDonough, who was the Secretary of the VA. And it meant something very deep, especially to my generation, as well as I know, whether to Marcus or anybody else who has served in our generations of defending our country, is that some of us served in the monsoons and in the swamps. Some of us served in the desert. Some of us served in the mountains of Afghanistan. Whatever it happens to be, we are brothers and sisters together. You know, we need better ways to help solve the horrific endemic than working Congress through this caucus to create a flourishing realm of research and to ensure for every veteran fighting their own battle here at home to reclaim their lives free of mental illness. That's our goal, and we're going to get there because we help others. Thank you.
We'll be fielding any questions now, if anyone's got anything in the queue. Perfect. Well, this was an easy one. I want to thank you guys, everyone that participated in this today. Thank you.